Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar at Bazongo's. And this is Ritu here, hosting you today. And I have Dileshwar Deshmukh with me. He's my colleague at Bazongo. I head the Bazongo's business arm for India and global. And Dileshwar here, who is also famously known as Didi, has an extensive experience in supply chain and sourcing over the last decade. So good afternoon, Dileshwar.
Good afternoon, Ritu. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hi, folks. Really looking forward to the insightful session.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for spending this afternoon with us. We'll make sure it's very interactive. And there is a lot of interesting findings that we have had, Bazongo has had over the last few months of extensive work around supply chain, which we are very happy to share with all of you. Why are we here today? I think that's a very pertinent question that we need to get answers for. And there's a lot of research that we would like to share before we get into the insights of how do we create an impact on revenue. I'm sure everybody in this call would like to know from us as to how do we make not only the company profitable, but also make the customers happy. One of the industry view that we would like to present at this point is in spite of having great OTIFs and fulfillment processes provided to our customers, there is just about 67% of satisfaction ratio that has come across in one of the research, which is pretty alarming because if you look at the typical fulfillment processes, we make sure that customers are getting their value on time, but still the satisfaction levels sit at about just merely 67%. To present very interestingly, if I give you the Bazongo view, we at Bazongo have about 85% of OTIF over the last more than 2 years that we've been delivering. When we did the CSAT with our customers, at that point also we figured out that at 85%, they're somewhat satisfied. This led to the next question, why so? This is where the team at Bazongo started doing a lot of groundwork, a lot of research, a lot of on-time understanding of customers. And we came up with understanding the supply chain process a little more closer. The common answer or the common theme to it was the complexity of the supply chain. I think all of us today are dwelling with this complexity as to how can we make sure that the product right from manufacturing till consumption, the supply chain that it follows is lesser complex for us to manage. Obviously, it led to the next thing. This is where we started thinking of when we have found what it is, obviously it led us to find the solution for delivering or managing this supply chain issues. We did further a lot of research. We went to customers. There were a lot of teams in the field who wanted to go and ask questions to these customers as to how would you have higher satisfaction ratios and what is it that we need to deliver? With the team putting in research together, the end goal was how can we get to a level of process automation? How can we get to a level of revenue impacting where the entire supply chain is managed better? This is exactly where we dwelled a little more on the challenges and came to two things. The findings here were very simple. The customers are consistently being faced, and that's something that we as service providers had to deal with, is unpredictable demand. There's a consistent unpredictable demand from your end customers. And that is something that we are unable to forecast, we are unable to take care of. But if that's the one side of the story, the second side of the story is the unmanageable supply chain ecosystem. It is at times unreliable, it is complex, tough to reach at. These are the two fundamental challenges that came across. I'm sure most of you would be agreeing to it. They have a direct impact, and they have a direct impact either on loss of sales or you're dealing with a lot of working capital issues. I'm sure most of you would have had these conversations at your management board as to how do we reduce the loss of sales, but then comes the problem of unpredictable demand. And you would also have a challenge on working capital, but then at the same time, the whole inventory management and overall managing the supplier network is a very big challenge. We're very keen to know your inputs. We would like to open a poll in a little while for this as to how do you think on these challenges. But moving on, while these challenges were very clear, at Bizongo and the whole team started figuring it out, how do we put a system in place which helps us to deliver that level of OTIF and that level of customer satisfaction? Here, the system being tech-driven is what we were very, very clear about because it requires a level of efficiency. If you look at, these were the 5 major points that we wanted to focus on. Very, very important that you need to be faster. And when I mean by faster, it's typically around speed fulfillment, okay? Faster doesn't mean that you need to reach from point A to point B, but how do I fulfill the customer's demand at a predictable speed? We also wanted a system which is very, very flexible. And when you reach to flexibility, it's not about moving around with the system, but a system which can handle change management. We've always seen softwares, we've seen platforms, and the lack of flexibility is where the user adoption of these platforms become very, very challenging. So more flexible system is something that became an anchor point for us. More granular. When we say granular, it's about visibility in supply chain. We definitely would want to know from where the shipment is starting, from when is it going to reach, where is it stuck? There are so many such questions when it comes to a very complex supply chain that we try to manage on an everyday basis, which has an end customer impact. Granular the system, better the visibility, better the control that any one of you would have to run such systems. Accurate, typically on accuracy, it's not about the system being accurate, but the inventory management through the system, the view that you get has to be extremely accurate. Inventory optimization is your end goal. We are basically like to look at how can you, if you remember the previous slide, working capital, if you have more inventory, obviously there's an issue with working capital. So we are looking at how can the systems be more accurate to help us manage inventory better. And last but never the least, more efficient. And we call about a system which is very, very efficient is basically putting both resources and automation together. If you combine these two, your efficiency obviously goes up. Dependency purely on only resources will be a tough point. Dependency only on automation might not be the real world. The digitization has potential to bring about this change. We need to step into a phase where supply chain process is completely digitized for us to manage. This obviously got us to the next piece, most important, which all of you would be eagerly waiting for. All of this research, all of this effort at the background got us to design a system, design a process flow, design how our supply chain is going to look like. There are 3 steps to integrate technology with supply chain was the ultimate goal that we set ourselves for. While we were doing this, it became imperative that we need to share this information with a larger audience who is struggling with the supply chain management issues. These 3 steps are coming with a lot of intensive work at Bizongo for the last more than 2 years, where we have come up with a system of our own, and we would like to share these best practices with you today as a takeaway. Dileshwar with me is going to give a brilliant insight of what we did and how we did it to these 3 steps.
Thank you, Ritu. So the first thing what we realize is that now if you look at the current scenario, the shopping avenues are available at the touch of a button, in a touch of a mobile screen. And hence there's a lot of demand variation is coming into the picture because the demand is now accessible to the end consumer at any point in time. Now, typically in a normal supply chain, what happens is that the variation in the demand is directly get exposed to the supply side. But supply side usually operates at a certain operational constraint. And that is where we try to do is that we try to decouple these 2 points those 2 points in a different manner. So demand and supply, we made a decoupling in between. Moving on to the next step, what we realize is that once we have decoupled these two things, in order to have a smooth functioning supply chain, it was very, very important that we move into an open PO system, because what happens is that if you look at PO is actually an enabler, it's not a constraint. Still, our supply chain can function. So we didn't want it PO system to function as a constraint or hindering the supply chain processes. And that's why we moved to an open PO system where, yes, there is a confidence that things are taken care in a good manner, in a more systematic manner. And as people can focus a lot on the deliveries, that's the most important thing. But the last piece, which is the most important thing I want to talk about, is the end-to-end automation, the process automation for connecting the supply to the demand part of it. And this is where we have done a lot of work. And what we actually went behind it, and we realized that there are a lot of manual touch points that has been in the system. We removed those touch points using our high-level tech integration, which is a robotic automatic process. And we removed this manual touch points, and most of the information is now flowing inside the system automatically. So these are the 3 steps I wanted to bring into your notice. Moving on to the next point, if you talk about the end-to-end process automation, there are a couple of areas in the entire supply chain. Those are actually helping us to deliver a better supply chain system. Now, the digitalization has happened in the various areas of the supply chain. That is towards your left screen. But I would like to highlight the 3 main elements where the supply chain has functioned really, really well and has driven a lot of impact. Those are essentially the order management process, the delivery management, and the automatic warehousing and inventory management. These are the 3 areas where we did a lot of automation, and it actually helped us to streamline our supply chain function really, really well, which is mostly the customer centric.
Yeah, I think we should stay on these 2 slides a little longer, and I'm sure it's going to keep coming back. But we are going to get into polls. There is a button below, which if you guys can click, you will be able to do the polls themselves. But just to come back, Didi, on the 3 steps that we're mentioning, right? Very simple 3 steps. But if you look at open PO and process automation leads to the tech side of the whole story.
Yes.
And the first is the supply chain.
Correct.
Can you give a little more insights on how much of a supply chain process change we had to do and how much of a tech investment or tech enablement that we had to do to get these 3 steps together?
Thanks for this question, Ritu. So actually, when we started our operation, we were more operational intensive, and we increased our OTIF a lot of putting into the manual rigor with the team and system. But like in the first slide, you mentioned that in spite of 85% OTIF, which is against a good 65% of the industry, we were 85% much better than the industry. We realized that this is not good enough. And that is where this thought came into our mind that we need to do a lot of supply chain automation that will probably increase the customer satisfaction. And we deliberated thoroughly on that, which are the areas where we can work on it. And a couple of pointers, what you mentioned is the open PO and the tech automation from supply to the demand side. We went behind this. Now, coming back to this particular slide, like I mentioned, the entire order management piece, what we realized is that we as an organization, we are offering a lot of convenience to the customer, that for them, order management should be much easy and should provide the visibility. Yeah. That is one piece where we did the integration with the supply, with the automation, and it helped them a lot to get a good visibility and with an easy, convenient ordering process. Moving on to the next, the delivery management process. This is one area which had been the black box for the entire packaging ecosystem, where once people place the order, they didn't know actually as in where the order is. And that's where we give them the visibility that once you place the order, they will have the complete visibility right from the sourcing to the end point it is getting delivered. They will have the entire tracking system. Now this is now completely automated and they have a better visibility. It's just giving them the confidence, yes, the order I have placed, it is going to get delivered to me at the right time. As far as the warehousing goes, there's a lot of, in the packaging ecosystem, we play with a lot of SKUs, and the SKU spread is very, very high. And for any warehousing management system, it becomes very difficult when the SKU spread is very high. At the same time, the orders are very high. What we did is that we put into automation in terms of picking and the packing process. Now, this entire thing actually helped us a lot to automate the entire warehouse and inventory management process and reducing the entire delivery cycle. But something I want to highlight that we've done a good work is around the inventory management piece. In packaging ecosystem, if you were to realize, there are a couple of articles which are aging based inventory. It is if there is a higher aging, the performance deteriorates, and hence we were actually getting the impact of it. And that's where what started doing is that we did a lot of technology played a lot of role in the way we manage the warehousing, and that's where the inventory aging and inventory turnaround we were able to do really, really good. So these are a couple of areas where we worked intensively, and it helped us to streamline our supply chain processes.
Okay, superb. I think we also have, going ahead in the slides, we also have, just give me a second. I don't think this one is working. Yeah. Perfect. We also have a fantastic story around here, right? Yes. As to while we found the 3 steps, we put automation and tech together along with supply chain processes. We went ahead and tried it with our customers. This is one great example in front of us.
Yes,
why don't we tell our listeners a little more about this? Why don't you give a little insight of this case, and then I will add in.
Sure, Ritesh. And this is one particular client, when we started our business, we knew that we have a mountain height expectation. How do we match with this? We started working on it, but we realized that the way we are working is not actually, sufficient to, give that kind of experience to the client. And that is where we took a pause and we thought that how we can improvise from the place we are actually operating. We were doing pretty well. Our OTIFs were really good, but still, it was a very, very complex task where we had 20 plus SKUs, 400 location. Now put together, this to put together is a 8,000 combination where we had to manage the inventory and the deliveries. It was pretty challenging task, but we undertook this task with a lot of supply chain automation, which we have imparted in our system that actually helped us to deliver the kind of numbers which we are able to see. If you can talk about those numbers.
Yeah, I think if you all see on the screen, right, the initial benchmark view was at 67%. Bizongo landed about 80% when we were doing things right. But then we had to really try and see what else can be done to take order fulfillment experience, a supply chain experience for an end customer at 100%. And we have been sharing these insights over the last 20 minutes on how we've got these 3 elements put together. If you see, the proof to the pudding is absolutely right in front of you. We reached about at 99% of OTIF with this customer. We could do 80% same day dispatches. They were 100% procure to pay. Brilliant tracking. One of the change or the feedback that we got, while we did a lot of automation, there was an auto replenishment system which we built in for these customers, which we have today to offer to a lot of customers. This auto replenishment system is where the change started happening to reach us to a 99%. Originally, I think we were running at about 30 days of timeline to deliver.
Yes, absolutely right. So in this particular case, because of the ordering cycle as such, we used to order in 30 days, and it was taking a lot of time and the bandwidth. But after the current ecosystem where we have actually increased the automation part of it, this entire ordering process is automatic now. So this 30 days actually come down to 3 days now.
Brilliant. So from 30 to 3 is where the customer starts experiencing the products and supply at his end. Most importantly, accurate tracking. I think the system gave a very seamless view to the customer from where the orders are starting to when they would reach, where the order is in the entire workflow. There's also a cataloging which the customers could add access for repeat orders, and all of this tracking enablement gave a visibility and control in the customer's hand to manage the supply chain. So these 2 elements became a very imperative success story for us, that if we have automation along with supply chain put together, there is definitely a larger impact that a customer can drive. We would like to go ahead in this slide. So if we have to give, and stay on this slide for a little longer, right? I think what we want to give to the listeners today is a little more on decoupling demand and supply, which is a larger right from supply to distribution to all of that. and moving to a process automation.
Mhm.
How has that been a takeaway? These three steps, if they're implemented, how is the takeaway for end customer?
Thanks, Ritu. So the first point where we realize is that there's a lot of variation in the demand that actually hampering the supply ecosystem is even creating more noise. And that is the reason we said, okay, we need to decouple these two things together and need to manage independently. And we did that by bringing in the inventory element in our own. So although Bizongo is a marketplace, but we do have our own inventory. We keep the inventory in separate in the different zones in the India. So we have our own warehousing system in the logistics network where we keep the inventory. This inventory actually helped us to decouple these two things together. But you are managing the inventory, it comes with its own kind of challenges.
Yeah.
Because managing the inventory will have those kind of working capital issues where if you have lesser inventory is a problem, if you have more inventory, then you have a problem. So in order to manage this inventory in a much better manner, we move into the process automation part where this entire ordering to delivery we should be automated and less manual intervention so that the cycle can be much faster and much smoother. So this is what we actually put it into the system. In order to do the inventory management system, we eventually introduced something called Bizongo automatic replenishment system, whereas it was very simple. It was a very simple process where customer can just place a order by clicking a button. Automatically, rest of the process will follow automatically, and depending upon the TAT we have agreed with the customer or the place where the requirement is there, the goods will reach over there in a more automated manner. At this point in time, our automation percentage is approximately 80-85%. Very 15 to 20% is a manual intervention where people have to, move inside the warehouse to do the picking, packing activity. Otherwise, most of the transactions, those are happening digitally,
Yeah.
and just integrated completely end to end.
Okay, superb. So I think the key takeaway for us here is while we have very standard supply chain processes for fulfillment which are existing, I think the challenge still persists for most of us to how fast can we access it,
Yes.
how accurately can we access it. And it's becoming very obvious that digitization on this platform is a must-have for the future. Visibility and control given more to the customers is something that we will have to deal with, right? This is very interesting. I think should we lead into the Q&A right away, because we have a lot of questions being there, and we have some questions which will take a little more for us to answer by people who had registered earlier and they've posted their questions. So I'm going to take these questions, and between me and Didi, we're going to keep on answering them. Didi, I think the first question is for you.
Yep.
How to plan an effective inventory of packaging when we have 200 plus products?
Oh, super. Yes, this is one of the issue which I have experienced over the experience of more than a decade, that most of the packaging people in the companies, they use multiple kind of packaging materials, starting from the fiber-based packaging material, then flexible plastic-based packaging material, and the rigid packaging material. This takes the SKU count to very, very high. In this very question, one of the audience have asked that it is a 200 plus. So typically it is not so easy to manage such, it is humanly impossible for everything to be managed on a, daily basis. Yeah. And the nature of packaging material is such, if the packaging material is not available, your main product cannot be shipped out. Absolutely. So it's very critical item, although a lesser value, but very, very critical item. And hence it has to be always available. Mm-hmm. So what we did, Ritu, to manage in this kind of situation is that we have an automatic replenishment system in which we first define the inventory levels we want to attain for this 200 SKUs. That is the first step. Once we have been able to define that what kind of inventory levels we are actually maintaining, system helps us to decide when a particular inventory drops down a level below. Let's say, for example, we call it as a replenishment level. Okay. The moment it comes below replenishment level, automatic order will get triggered. And this inventory replenishment will happen on an automated basis. Imagine for a person to do this, on a daily basis for 200 SKUs, if this gets further multiplied to number of locations, let's say a simple a company which is operating at least 4 geographies of India, 200 into 4, 800 location SKU combination, very difficult for a person to manage, but much easier for a system to manage. So we have defined the rules inside the system where this kind of problems are getting solved very, very easy manner. So rules are defined in terms of what kind of inventory should be there, The moment it boils down a particular level, automatic orders are getting generated. So this is how we are managing this particular problem.
Oh, very interesting. I think the second question is something that I will have to take. The question is very interesting. It's how does Bizongo do order management accurately? That's a step one in any supply chain to get the order management right. I would like to share that Bizongo has a very interesting tech platform built. It's a cloud-based platform called Procure Life, which is extremely automated. It has a process flow built in right from client quotation creation till invoicing. So for any customer who comes in, his process flow starts from accessing Procure Life, where it's a cloud-based solution. They just get a view of a catalog. They can give their orders. Um, it's actually very interesting that the first time is about system setup, but when you go to repeat orders become very interesting because every data point is there. The customer's time to order is reduced. The moment the time to order is reduced, your entire supply chain process gets managed from that start point. It's the cataloging is something which we are building more extensively. That's something that basically gives us an idea of how your customers can be managed proactively rather than reactively. So overall, the Procure Live as a cloud-based platform gives us a huge control mechanism to manage our customers and give them an experience, because that's where exactly your reporting, your entire dashboarding happens for them to know where the product is and till where it's going to go. Okay. That's how we are managing our order management today. There is another interesting question by another user. Didi again leads to the same one. How to manage inventory of more than 150 SKUs in small space?
Oh, that's pretty interesting one. And I think pretty relevant to our kind of a situation where we realize that a couple of our clients, they operate in a middle of a city, and they cannot have a bigger space where they will operate and keep the packaging inventory. And they have to operate at a very smaller space, which is a much premium space. And so very often or not, they come to the situation where they have to decide that how to utilize this space better. The obvious choice is that in this particular space, they need to keep their main articles, what they are selling, the main product most, and least of this packaging inventory. So in this kind of situation, what we did is that we actually worked together with them that how much inventory they should be keeping at their space. We realized that they should be keeping the minimum inventory. And what should be that minimum inventory? In order to support those minimum inventory, what we started actually doing is that our Bizongo ecosystem is managed in certain manner that we have got a wonderful delivery capability. We have got a warehousing network across India, and we have got logistics partner, those who can serve extensively to the most number of the pin codes. Using this two network, what we did is that we made our system capable of generating the frequent orders and the frequent replenishment. So what happens eventually when your backbone or your backend system is integrated seamlessly, has a capability to deliver more frequently, you need not to keep larger inventory at your premises. So our such clients are able to operate in a small space with a lesser inventory and getting much faster deliveries. And the best is that these faster deliveries are happening in an automatic manner, where we are just getting the information that, okay, the moment their inventory has come down a certain level, automatic order is getting triggered, and very next day they receive the new inventory. So we have gone to the extent that there are a couple of clients in the metros where we are delivering on a daily basis. Daily frequent replenishment are happening, and they're operating at just 2 to 3 days of inventory. So those kind of capability we do have.
Okay, interesting. There is another interesting question from user, and it's again, let me try and answer this one. What changes could increase revenue? I wish there was a simple answer for this. Everybody wants to increase revenue. Who doesn't want to? But let me rephrase this question, I think, and it's pretty much there in our earlier slides as well. What changes impact revenue? Okay. And when it's about impacting revenue, I think one of the biggest thing which we have discovered with customers and with our experience is inventory management. If you are able to manage your inventory to the optimal level, then it's very easy for us to control the revenue impact. We have had situations where customers hold on to inventory from anywhere from 1 week to 35 days. And all of this is working capital blockage. So we are very looking at how do you optimize inventory? And if you go back, and if I have to stick to those 3 slides, it's if you can decouple the demand and supply, first step itself, for sure we are optimizing the inventory at a customer location or even at Bizongo's location, and that has a direct revenue impact. I would like to take this question up as well. This question is, how much time does it take for Bizongo to optimize inventory management for a new company through bars? I think both of us will chip in for this one. How much time is very subjective, but I will try and give a little more realistic answer to this. I think having a very digitized system in place for enabling auto replenishment is very important. We already have that system in place. So time taken for us to show the impact is not going to be pretty long. Optimization is a twofold process. One is to really understand the demand from the customer end. Basically, if you remember Didi mentioning about maintaining norms, if we have a view of how the current setup is at the customer location and that data input starts coming into the system, then I think giving a real-time value for automation and optimizing it becomes real. Didi, would you like to add something to this?
Yes, Ritu. So basically, what we realize is that for a new customers, it takes. You're absolutely right. I would like to be much more practical. It is a first-time engagement. That actually takes time. Once we are able to overcome the first obstacle, which is understanding each other's ecosystem by showing that okay, this is our capability, what we have, and what kind of product requirement you have. Once this is done, then rest of the things are pretty simple and fairly easy, where the repeat orders are much easier. First time is obviously the expectation matching phase. That is only takes time, and that is where you answered very beautifully that it takes time to understand the first thing. Rest of the things are pretty simple.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ritu.
Yeah. Let's take up this question from Rohit as well. How Bizongo can work with packaging manufacturers, share us likely opportunities. Very interesting because it's exactly the network that we are in. If I take the first part, how can Bizongo work with packaging manufacturers? Absolutely. I think one of the challenges which we have noticed in our experience from packaging manufacturers is to have a consistent demand flow. That's where it helps to you to do your production planning. Imagine a situation where if we are able to give you a predictive production plan for the months to come, I think that has a direct impact on any manufacturer on how his demand can be managed. Because of this automation, because of the system that we have in place, it's extremely impactful for packaging manufacturers to work with Bizongo because these are guaranteed opportunities that come your way where we have a demand created from the end customers, which gets fed into the manufacturers for doing their production planning. So that's absolutely possible. Will we get a copy of presentations? Yeah, there are some comments that the team are writing. You will be getting the recordings for sure. Are there any more questions that we can take since we have time? I think there is another one offline question which I will take. This is very interesting, Didi, and we could take this up. How do you increase OTIF by optimizing distribution?
Okay, so this is a pretty interesting one, Ritu. And if you were to look at OTIF is the end goal that actually customer cares about, and OTIF is actually the is a series of events and the activities that goes behind to achieving that 100% OTIF. So basically, it starts from the process of manufacturing, then the dispatching from the warehouse on time, and the delivery. If these 3 things are happening on time, then only the OTIF will be 100%. And obviously the quantity part of it, that what customers are asked for it, we should be able to get it. In Bizongo, what we have done is that we have extensive seller warehousing in the logistics network that is actually helping us to increase our OTIF. Because of this OTIF, we are able to have a faster replenishment cycle. That's number one. And hence, what happens is that because of this a good network, our lead times are much shorter as compared to anybody else. So typically, what happens, a particular seller is, is in one particular geography of India. The seller discovery is pretty difficult for any new company at the other geography. However, if they get associated with Bizongo, that is where we come to the picture and we are able to help them. So in order to increase the OTIF, we have got a good seller network. We have got a good warehousing and the logistics network that actually helps to reduce the lead time and increasing the OTIF.
Okay, so it's basically an end-to-end distribution network map, which basically has a direct impact on OTIF as well.
Absolutely right. Okay.
Super. There's another interesting question on sales impact and inventory management. I think I'll take that up. There is a direct correlation, obviously, because if you look at end customers and they have a direct value to be delivered to their customer, it's basically how soon they can get their products to the customer. Better inventory management would lead to a direct sales impact, because if you have the products to sell at right time, at right packaged and to be delivered, obviously there is a direct impact on how your customers are going to react to it. One of the feedbacks that we have got with the customers is by managing this, there has been a good new acquisition focus that they could lead to, because the products were available, the packaging was available, the demand fulfillment was in control of our end customer, which allowed them to go and acquire market faster. So even if you look at a tail end problem of just packaging being available or supply chain being accurate, it has a very beautiful story around how it increases sales and has a sales impact. So for sure, we have heard the stories from our end customers and how impactful digitization of supply chain helps them to reach to their end customers faster. We should take another question, which the team has highlighted. How to maintain the inventory based on the customer pull, since we have to more agile to support customers, but due to the more number of SKUs, almost 150 plus. So yes, Didi.
Yeah, I would like to take this up again. Yes, I do acknowledge this. When the SKU count goes up, it becomes very, very difficult. But the beauty of the system, what we have developed, is that it does not work on the demand forecasting. It originates with the demand forecasting, but actually it reacts on the actual consumption. And that is exactly what this gentleman is talking about, is the customer pull.
Yeah.
Pull means in push is something that we are pushing to the system, that, okay, is the demand forecast, maintain your inventory according to that. And we more often not we realize demand forecast at macro level is pretty accurate. But as you go down finer and finer to the more micro level, SKU level, the demand forecasting varies anywhere from 60%. And that impacts the supply chain very intensively. So in order to have the customer pull, what we have actually done is that we created a inventory at our premises, and this inventory, the trigger is actually coming from the pull. As and when the customer is actually consuming the inventory, basis the pull based system, the inventory will get depleted, and the moment it crosses a certain level, the reorder will get generated. So instead of a demand forecast chasing system, which is a push system, we have actually moved into the pull system, whereas and when the customers are asking for more and more inventory, the more and more inventory is actually coming to them. Having said that, there are a few examples where this system might not work in a more efficient manner. For the known demands where we know that, okay, some peak is coming, some festival is coming, and there's going to be a spike order. In those kind of system, in those kind of scenario, what we really work is that we built in the information in the system that this is a duration in which we are expecting to be a promotion or certain event. So what happens is that the beauty of the system is that the moment we plug in this information, system will automatically calculate that in order to cater that kind of demand, how much inventory do I need? And those inventory, the production planning will be aligned as per the creating those inventory. So that's the beauty of our system that we have created. It's very, very logical and work very, very seamlessly.
Superb. Fantastic. I think there was another question on SAP integration. I would like to take that up. But if you want, I can take this one up. What has Bizongo done in making it an automated warehouse? So Didi, I think little insights from you, but it's a very vast question. It's not an automated warehouse, but the system is automated. The warehouse is pretty much brick and mortar. We don't have those intelligence around product coming in, product going out. But the system running at the warehouse is very tightly integrated back and forth with the seller ecosystem and the customer ecosystem. I think that's what the key is. It's not about automation of warehouse, because that's huge expense, but it's automation of a process flow that goes through the warehouse.
Just to add, Ritu, on this, as in the automation of warehouse, the way I look at it is the two things. Number one is the physical movement of the goods. There can be an automation with there are other technology system called ASRS, automatic storage and the retrieval systems, etc. No, we have not put that kind of systems, but physical movement is still manual. But yes, there is system movement also, where people need to punch a lot of information in the system. All those kind of processes we have in first level of automation we have integrated. So people need to put in very minimal information in the system. Most of the thing there is actually scanning, and things are actually information is passing on the system seamlessly. So those kind of automation we have been able to achieve. Yes, the next level of automation is exactly what you mentioned, is the ASRS. Implementing those kind of system is something that we can look at it in a future as and when our demand rises.
Super. I think let's take these two questions, very interesting, very interlinked. I will just read question from Sivaram first. We moved to SAP systems recently. Is it possible to integrate Bizongo with SAP? The answer is yes. I think integration of systems is something which is very critical for optimal function. Can we do it? Answer is yes. The similar question which Saurabh has asked is, we are using Microsoft ERP application for managing inventory. That means Bizongo will integrate with our inventory system. Also, we are into sweets, namkeens, online food deliveries. This consumption of inventory of packaging material is not tracked. To break this question in two parts, and we'll both attempt to answer this. First is, can I go back to that question, please? The first part is ERP application for managing inventory. That means Bizongo will integrate. Answer is yes. We could look into how your ERP system is working, whether it needs an integration, whether it needs an override from pure procurement side. That study can be done. And on the second part is consumption of inventory of packaging material is not tracked. Didi, how would you want to answer that one?
Thanks, Ritu. So most of the situation, what we realize is that the packaging material and inventory, people do not track it in the system. The systems are more configured towards tracking the main material master they have, and packaging. Unfortunately, the packaging materials are not part of that of this master system, and that is why very often or not they miss the managing the packaging material inventory, and they have the sales losses. What we encourage is that if we can have some manual intervention, as long as the system will need the information, and we should be able to manage this. But what I wouldn't like to give this answer yes or no at this point in time. I would rather want to leave it to the system, as in what kind of information is available. Basis the kind of information is available with us, that can be managed. In fact, we are already managing similar kind of situation with a handful of our clients. So we do have the capability. But yeah, to be very honest, there is no yes or no kind of answer to this. But yes, we are managing those kind of situation. It's much more, much more situation dependent management.
Sure. Superb. So should we take the last question, or should we just have the last question? Okay. Let's take this question from Bhavesh. What is the maximum number of SKUs that Bizongo inventory system can accommodate, since there are numerous products and SKU, especially with e-commerce growth and all? The answer is endless. Yes. There is no limit for the number of SKUs that Bizongo inventory system can take. As I mentioned, there is a cataloging that we can build, and we could have, we have in fact categorized these number of SKUs for different industries. We are in that process as well. So would you like to add something to it, Didi?
Yeah, totally agree with you, Ritu. As far as system is concerned, there are no real constraint in the system. System can manage as much information it can, hold up to. So far, what we have seen is that in our ecosystem, so far more than 1 lakh SKUs we have been able to manage. Correct. And that's humongous.
Yeah. Superb. I think this gets us to the end of the webinar time. It was very, very encouraging to see the number of questions. I would like the listeners to have the last slide on the 3 key takeaways at this point of time. Please do remember that our work basically points at this. One, decouple demand and supply, move to open PO systems and introduce process automation. You can reach out to Bizongo for knowing anything more around this topic. We will put up the slide, which basically gives our connects. Reach out to us, and we will be more than glad to assist you in this process. Thank you so much for being our listeners today, and we're looking forward to conversations from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ritu. Thank you so much, audience, for an insightful session. Enjoyed thoroughly.